Hey, you beautiful beings. Welcome to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. I am your host, and you are listening to the throwback episodes. Yeah, I have officially taken a pause on creating new episodes for the podcast so that I can focus on writing the book. It became very clear that while I have loved doing the podcast, I'm getting these episodes out every week to you all piecemeal. I was like, no more, no more. You all were like, please, please, can you get us all those skills and tools, Nina, in one area so that we can do the empowered human journey, so that we can really see what it's like from start to finish? To which I say, yes, absolutely. Let me get this to you. Yes. So what you're going to be hearing is this. You're going to be hearing throwback episodes from all 6 seasons, okay? It's not going to be every episode, so don't freak out on me yet. But it is going to be some of the episodes that were highlighted, that were popular, that we think, maybe you all missed and we want to bring it back. You're going to be hearing throwback episodes, and I am going to be listening along with you. I too want to hear about the journey and experience the journey that I had as we moved from Triggered Can We Play With That, the original podcast, all the way to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. So you're going to hear personal stories. You're going to hear interviews. You're going to be given skills in every episode. Yes, you're going to be given tools in every episode for you to become skilled in. It is totally up to you whether you want to listen. If it's not the episode for you, skip to the next week, right? You just take what works for you, leave what doesn't. And if there's some stuff you're curious about, why don't you just go ahead and put that on the shelf? The podcast has always been about putting resources in the hands of people without needing to pay for it, right? And so this is no different. Even with these throwback episodes, what you're going to hear is this. We're going through, just as I said, you're going to still hear me talk at the beginning of each episode, letting you know, hey, we've had a transition. You're going to hear the original intro to the episode. You're going to hear the show music, and then you're going to hear the full original episode. This could mean that dates are off, that times are off, that people are talked about, that may no longer be in our lives, right? Just be aware of that. At the very end of the episode, you're going to see this face again come back to remind you that it was a throwback episode and to maybe offer you some adventure challenges as you move from week to week, right? Though the format of the episode did change over the years that we've done this podcast, the value is still there. So if you like something, definitely hit me up on Instagram at dramatherapist Nina and be like, Nina, I love that throwback episode about XYZ thing. Yes, fill in the blank with that. Let me know. And if there's something that you're looking for in the meantime, also hit me up on Instagram at dramatherapist Nina and let me know. Otherwise, stay curious and enjoy the ride, folks. I'll be right along there with you. Welcome to Empowered Human, the dramatically playful podcast that invites you to heal humanity, the one within you, me, and the world at large. I'm your host, drama therapist, empowerment specialist, and not to mention empowered human, Nina Garcia. And I'm so stoked you're joining me on the journey. Every Wednesday, you are invited to explore transforming from powered to empowered with genuinely human stories of courageous existence, healing from invalidation, and truly belonging to you. So wherever you are on the spectrum, from empowerment curious to empowered human ambassador, this podcast is designed to humanize. Get ready to lean into your edge, heal your worldview, and finally belong to you. This is Empowered Human. Lots of people are asking, well, why is this the triggered topic? Why is love so triggering, right? You're so funny. I'll tell you why. Some of us really struggle with a packaged presentation of love. And sometimes that packaged presentation is beautiful and lovely, and sometimes it is horrific and terrible. And for most of us, it's actually somewhere in between, right? We've got a spectrum of what love can look like, but because of our own packaged presentation of it, that means there's a lot of potential triggers around love and everything we might connect or associate with love, right? And so if you listen to today's episode, you and I are both consenting to have a very playful experience. And y'all, let me tell you right now, we're about to play. We are very seriously, playfully about to play and diversify our ability to play with gamifying. I said it, gamifying, as in making something like a game. And what is it that we're gamifying, you might ask? Sex and love. Now, already for people, if love wasn't triggering enough, you throw sex into the mix and it's like, oh my goodness, what are you talking about? I don't know if I want to talk about sex, Nina. Right? Some of you are like, definitely, I need to have this conversation. I'm ready to lean in. Let's do this. Wherever you are at relative to sex and love, this episode is not going to touch on everything, but it is going to touch on at least one facet to help us potentially transform hard conversations around sex and love into teachable moments. Okay. Now, I will say for everyone listening into this episode is not explicit. Not in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of education in this episode, and imagery and opportunities to explore, but there is nothing explicit about this episode so long as you're ready to talk about sex. So I just want to put that out there. Of course, you know me, I'm playful. I like to keep it, to go deep while we're also keeping it lighthearted. And so my invitation at this point is to get a journal on hand or have a good friend to dialogue with what comes up for you in this particular episode. Because for now, I'm curious. Are you ready to play? Let's take a breath. Hi, Zach.
Hi, Nina.
I don't usually take an exhale like that, but I felt like it was warranted given the amount of stress getting here and also that this is an episode on sex and love, and I just couldn't resist playing with it in that way.
Hey, do what you got to do. Sometimes you need a extra sort of flourish on your exhale. So
There
it's
it
all
is.
good.
I say this all the time. Emotion is energy that must be expressed. If you do not find a way to express it, it will find a way to express you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Zach, welcome to the podcast. Triggered, can we play with that? This is our specialty episode on sex and love, and you're our person.
Yay. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And no, really, I'm honored. I love the podcast. So glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Friends, people listening, Zach is of consentwarrior.com. He's been here before us once, with us before, excuse me, back in season 2. And welcome to season 3. We're in our second month where this is our 9th episode is what this is going to be. So it's lovely to have you back. And I am ready to play with some sex and love. Are you?
Sure. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So for everyone listening, this is our time where me and Zach say, hey, we're consenting to have this conversation, right? So if you're listening in, you are consenting to listen in and have this conversation just with yourself, right? You might want to lean in and say, no, I don't just want to consent to have this conversation with myself. Maybe I want to have this conversation with someone I care about. Right? Maybe I want to have this conversation, take it a step further with somebody who has similar things in common with me, right? Maybe I want to take this a step further and post about it, right? Do we see how we're getting more public with this, bigger and outright? How you play with it is 100% up to you. If you never tell anyone that you heard this episode, that's okay. I'm not going to tell anyone. Deal? Yeah? All right. So, Zach, let me tell you why we're doing this episode. Is that okay?
That'll work for me.
Okay, fantastico. So here's what's going on. I have noticed in my personal life and also in my professional life that there are a lot of individual culture differences when it comes to sex. And what I mean by that is every individual has their own comfortability and relationship to the idea of sex. For some people, it's like, oh, this is what it looks like. This is the packaging that it belongs in. It should only look like this. For other people, it's like, oh no, sex is this multidimensional, multifaceted thing, right? it looks different from person to person. And so what ends up happening sometimes is there's conflict around it between people because they have different views of it. And then there's also lots of triggers for individual people in their own relationship with it because they haven't explored it. They haven't consented and really allowed themselves to explore, hey, what is my personal relationship with sex, right? As opposed to, here's what my, for example, parents told me I should believe about sex. Here's what my friends tell me I should believe about sex. Here's what my religious organization, community, public people, right? Whatever it is, that fill in the blank that says, here's a package presentation, instead of really inviting someone to play with their own idea of what sex means to them.
Okay. I dig it. Gotcha.
So this is what I want to invite people to do, right? This is what the whole podcast is about, is let's figure out how we can play with something that may be a really hard conversation and make it into a teachable moment. Yeah.
Sure. Works for me.
Okay. So story time. Are you ready? Let's do it.
Okay. Let's do it.
So the other day I was watching on Netflix, perhaps you've heard of it, Sex, Love, and Goop.
I have heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Yes. Okay. So it's like the Gwyneth Paltrow thing. I know people are like rolling their eyes right now, or they're like, oh my gosh, I saw that, right? There's a lot of feelings just around the idea of Sex, Love, and Goop, around Gwyneth Paltrow. Even in fact, as we're talking about this, people may have picked up on, right? I'm a female presenting voice. I'm going to cast your voice as a male presenting voice. And so people may already feel uncomfortable with that. That may be triggering, like, it's not a same gendered conversation. What do you mean? Right?
Right.
Take a breath, listeners, because this is a safe space and we've all consented to be here.
All right.
All right. But let's keep leaning in. So I'm watching Sex, Love, and Goop, and I am totally head over heels for this one presenter on the show. And the presenter's name is Jaya. And Jaya specializes in, quote unquote, this deeper connection of fulfilling intimacy and satisfying sex, right? And Jaya's thing is she has these 5 erotic blueprint types. And when she's talking about these 5 erotic blueprints, now I'm not Jaya, right? But my experience of it is that everyone has their own blueprint. And if we could really learn to see what someone's blueprint is, we can really meet the needs of that individual and enhance their intimacy for themselves and with their partner or partners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we ourselves can find more pleasure because we're meeting the needs of our partner. It's sort of like, I looked at it in my own personal experience. I was like, oh, this is like love languages, but for eroticism.
Ah, yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. That's a different way of looking at it. Yeah.
So do you want to hear what they are?
Sure. Let me know. Hit me.
All right. So the 5 different erotic blueprint types that we can play with, right? What are the ideas? She's got energetic, an energetic blueprint type. There's sensual, there's sexual, there's kinky, and then there is shapeshifter. Wow. Even as I say those, what's popping up for you? I'm getting the.
Yeah, I'm energetic, sensual, sexual, kinky, shapeshifter. Yeah, I have questions about all 5. I almost wish we could talk to Jaya, because I'm like,
I would love to get Jaya on the episode. Jaya, if you're listening, we'd love to have you. But even just, I love this though, because this is the first time you're hearing about it. So for the same, right, a lot of people listening, they will have never heard about it. So what I'm hearing is curiosity already. It's intrigued some part of you to say, oh, I'd like to talk to, the person who created them and be like, hey, what's going on with these?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want to know some definitions. What do you mean by this? And yeah, is this really true for all beings and all people? I guess I should say. So yeah.
We get into that, like, is this a popular quiz? Is this just like a lot of anecdotal information, which doesn't mean it's not true, but right? Or is this like, how deeply researched has this been? That's what's sort of coming up for you.
Yeah. And just
Okay.
some curiosity, what when they're developing this and what do we mean when we say, shapeshifter, for example, or sensual versus energetic, things like that. So yeah.
Yes. So in the show, it's really fun because she goes through and she's working with real couples
Mhm.
as they and you can see all sorts of good stuff. Yeah. It's a great way if you are struggling with intimacy and really saying, I want to lean into it. Watching this series, I think, is a really great way of leaning into it. It's actually something that I've invited my clients as an offering. I've said, if it's something you want to play with, just go check out the summary, just go watch a
Mm.
trailer. And if it feels like internally your body is saying, oh, I'm intrigued by this, or is responding in some sort of beneficial way, I say follow it up. Like, let that curiosity lead you. It's not hurting you and it's not hurting anybody else. To just say, I want to explore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with
Definitely.
energetic, it's really interesting because she goes on and she's like, it's like you don't even have to touch your partner. Like there's an energy there. And she actually does a scene with her partner where she's on the table and he leads her to climax, doesn't touch her. It's an incredible scene. Sensual, sexual, it's just the difference in different pieces. Kinky is where she brought in different objects. And then shapeshifter, the idea was that shapeshifter is like, you can switch. You have a few different things, and it's like you don't belong hardcore in one. Like you don't have one that's really, really set. And so obviously I'm not Jaya.
Mhm.
This was my experience of it. And you can actually go to missjaya.com and you can take the quiz. I would be really curious to see how people pop up if they're able to play with it. But I think even just in that, that's a really easy way to say, hey, I want to explore my own sexuality. Let me just take this
Right.
quiz. Even if it's not right based in anything, it's getting me to think about and explore my own relationship to this idea of sex.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, and knowing what little bit I know about Jaya, that kind of tracks with the work that Jaya's done in the past. So
So what's coming up? I'm doing a lot of talking. And I am
uh
curious, what's coming up for you when we think about, I know that you said about the erotic blueprint types.
mhm.
When you think about inviting somebody in who is not as comfortable with the idea of sex. Maybe they came from a family, say, where it was like not spoken about. It's like, we don't
Mhm.
talk about it. We're not going to think about it. You're not going to look at it. We're just going to send you off into the world. Good luck. Right. A lot of people come from families like that. I will
Mhm.
have clients who come to me who will end up in a relationship where they have very little experience, but they're with a partner who has a significant amount of experience, right? According to their perspective, right?
Mhm.
And so there's that difference in that. And then they're like, I want to learn how to play with it, but I don't know how, right? And so I'm always trying to find resources that are fun, that are playful, that invite a sense of curiosity so that people can really get to exploring, these pieces of themselves that maybe their family and their upbringing didn't really allow them to. So
Right.
if you had me on your doorstep and I was like, Zach, I want to explore consent, consenting with myself to really explore my relationship with sex, with myself, with my partner, maybe. What sort of things come to mind for you?
What sort of things come to mind? So, first of all, I love the idea of giving oneself consent to sort of do these things because
Mhm.
consent in many ways can feel like permission, and if you're allowing yourself to kind of be open to enthusiastically wanting to do these things, then it takes a little bit of the maybe this is taboo or type of stuff away from it. It's like, you know what, I'm an adult and I have the right to consent to even just exploring these things, whether it's with my partner or on my own. I
Mhm.
have the right to explore this stuff because I'm an adult and consent is there, even if it's just with myself. So that's one of the first things that kind of comes up for me is I like the idea of framing it with the consent. It's like, can I give myself consent to do this? And is there any harm done? Do no harm as far as, sex or sexual energy or pleasure or any of that, whether it be just oneself with oneself or one with another partner. This idea of, the whole purpose of this, the whole purpose of sex is, of course, no harm whatsoever, right? It's literally to exchange pleasure, joy with somebody that we care about, or at least care enough about to exchange sexual interaction for
Mhm.
that moment. So I like the idea of kind of being open to that as well. And explore is a great word. because nobody's really got it 100% figured out. And particularly if we're with a partner and there's a discrepancy in the levels of experience, we're always exploring until we have each other 100% figured out. And then we never know. Once we figure ourselves and our partner out, then maybe we can explore other things together. So I like the idea of exploration and, again, consenting to that exploration. So yeah, there's a couple of different levels there.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I just love everything that you just said with consent, exploration, and then the tying it together, right? Because you really do. You're like, oh, I can give myself consent, and this is one piece. And that's a beautiful, strong piece. And I do think it's important to phrase it that way of giving oneself consent, because we may have a part of us that is conditioned to say, you should not talk about this, that it is taboo, right?
Right.
Or one of the pieces that you said, right, that sex may be for pleasure. We may have grown up with a part that was actually conditioned to believe that sex is, for example, only procreation.
Right.
Or that it's
Yeah.
only for someone if you're married to them, right? And in no way, shape, or form, for my listeners out there, am I trying to change your belief system? But this podcast is about really challenging ourselves to think about, is this belief that's a part of me, is it mine? Or is it something that someone else placed there and I decided that I was going to believe it without really asking myself, do I want to believe that?
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think that, really asking yourself, can I consent to talk about this, and giving yourself permission to, yes, I can listen to this. I can look at it. I can read about it. I can journal about it, that I can just keep it for myself. I love that idea of consenting for the self. Like, what a way to show love for the self. That's how I look at it. Is if we're not willing to ask ourselves these questions about things our physical bodies are capable of, right? Are we really showing ourselves a full acceptance and love of what our body is capable of, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a great question, and something to explore, which brings me to the next part that you brought up. Picture it. I imagine it's like exploration is like this landscape, right? And it's like, oh, I want to explore what sex is as a landscape, and that's incredibly varied, right? But even if I explore what it's like with myself and that landscape, right? And I get to know myself and what that landscape is like, which means I get to know what I like, when I like it, how I like it, right? What I might like. And there's a lot of safety in that, right? It says, oh, I know what's mine. I can own that this is my truth. And then you bring in a partner. And then you're like, oh, now I get to explore your territory, right? And to the degree that you're able, and I get to figure out what you want and how you like it, and then so on and so forth, right? And then you mention this part, and you're like, well, what happens when you 100% get to know each other, right? But it's like people keep changing, right? We change all the time. Our bodies are changing, our capacity to hold experiences and what we might be interested one year, we might not be interested in the next year, right? It changes, or we get really used to it. And then we want a change. We yearn for a change, right? And
Yep.
so I love this idea of saying, yeah, we can have explored what we knew 100%, but oh my gosh, what's the next space to explore, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And again, and exploring together as itself a fun activity that you do that brings one closer to a partner because, hey, we're trying something new together. We've got a certain amount of, and not to say that we've got everything about ourselves figured out or even as ourselves as a couple or whatever. But when we're together with a partner and being open to and consenting to enthusiastically, let's go try something new or different and see. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be a sexual thing. It can be something like, let's explore energy transfer, and can we play with the energy between the two of us and whatnot, and have that be some sort of thing to sort of experience or not experience or attempt to experience together and see what that does for us. That can literally be an exploration and an activity that brings the partners closer together.
I love this. An exploration and an activity. Yeah. So I think about when you, there's something you said, and you're doing this thing with your hands that I can't quite explain in words, right? This sort of like juggling is how I imagine, like of energy, like a passing of energy between your hands. And what I will often say when couples come in is, you two are on a team. You're playing a game together. You're either playing by the same rules or you're playing by different rules. So when you first come in, it's likely that you're playing by different rules. And at some point, you want to agree to play by the same rules.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you have to be in a box with those rules. Those rules can change, right? But if you want it to work together, if you want to move forward together, you have to agree that you're not on opposing teams, that you are playing a collaborative game together. And how do we explore, right? Yes, I keep using the word sex, right? But I think it's so important what you just said. A part of that exploration piece is that sex means it's a multifaceted, multi-layered thing. Energy transfer as intimacy, right? And in fact, if you look at Jaya's thing, right, energy transfer as sexuality, right? And the
Right.
different pieces of that. There is this incredible world to explore if we would only let ourselves do it. If we would only let
Yeah.
ourselves have that permission and that consent to say, it's just exploration. What can I do?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like the idea of telling a couple, hey, you are playing a game and maybe you've got different sets of rules. And it's either we agree to adjust some of the rules or we can collaborate and write a new set of rules together, and play that kind of game, right? And then, hey, you know what, we're going to agree on these rules together and kind of or create our own game. That's fine too.
Wait a minute. Did you just say I have the freedom to create my own game?
Absolutely. Why not? Right. Yeah. I mean, because here's the thing, one of the things I always talk about whenever I'm coaching poly clients is, every relationship, every interaction has the right to sort of grow organically on its own. And the only people who have any say over what goes on in a relationship are the people in that relationship. So, draw the rules however you want, create a new game, whatever it may be. And by all means, leave yourself open to consent to trying new things, to exploration, and let that be something because collaborative exploration, can you imagine? I mean, the possibilities.
Oh, buddy, can I?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Nina, you're a creative. I mean, I tend to be more verbal than actual, visually creative. But yeah, being able to create something or just to explore creation of something together, what an intimate act and what a loving act and to form something totally new and different that is just yours, that just belongs to the two of you. So yeah, I mean, I see that as a very beautiful thing. And I can see how these sort of the little 5 tenets that Jaya has down can sort of work in that, and that exploration and that play together can definitely be an opportunity to explore and grow within a relationship.
Absolutely. So I'm already feeling the impulse here. We've said something a few times, and I feel like this is the offering of this
Uh-oh.
episode so far. I want people to build a game.
Hmm.
I want people to build their own game when it comes to their relationship with sex and the multifaceted meaning of what that could mean, right? With sex and love. So we're talking about love for the self, right? The most individual part that it can be. Then love between, right? Love and sex between you and a partner. Then maybe love and sex between you and multiple partners, right? We've got in our poly clients, right? And our poly friends.
Right.
And even what's the word that I want to look at? Not a word that I want to look at. Differences in relationships. So we started with the individual, right? I mentioned that one. The consensual, but not necessarily monogamous. So like I'm dating openly maybe, and I'm seeing, multiple partners, but I don't quite identify as poly, and I'm also not in a monogamous relationship, right? I'm just dating and sort of dating around and being intimate and engaging and, that world. Then there's the sort of like, yes, right? That exploration, right? Then there's a sort of like, I have a monogamous partner and that world. And then there's I have multiple partners, right? That I'm dedicated to and they're my partners. So I want to explore, what is it like to build a game for all those? Can we start with the individual and then like play with it and go up? Can we do that?
Yeah, we can give it a whirl. Sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, get ready. We're about to build a game for you. But just so we're clear, this is very limited to my experience and Zach's experience of this very moment. You have freedom to create any game you want. Isn't that right, Zach?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, so wonderful. Here we go. So if I'm thinking that I have an individual and I'm like, you know what? I am an individual person. I'm not locked down to a partner. I haven't chosen any partners yet. And I'm not dating yet. I just want to explore my own relationship with sex and love. What does that game look like?
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, that's tough. Yeah.
I have an answer. I'm raising my hand.
I'm glad you do, because it was taking me a second.
So I guess technically, actually, this is where I'm at. I'm an individual who is not seeing anyone, and I'm like, yeah, let me explore. Right, I'm in the process of a divorce still, right? And I think, yeah, it is like a refining yourself of like, well, what's my relationship now to sex and love, right? Like, what's that look like? So I
Right.
think when I think about the game for individuals, I think about being able to explore your own territory and say, what is it that I'm interested in right now?
Mhm.
Am I interested in, for example, thinking about it? Am I interested in talking about it? Am I interested in writing about it? What about reading about it? Can I pick up some books just for me, myself, and I? Right? What about watching it? Can I watch like a steamy movie? What about a porn? Right? And so some people are already going to be like, bum, 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 right? Their hearts are beating because this is a
Right.
little
Yeah.
bit, it's edgy potentially for some people. And for some people, they're like, no, that's like been there, done that.
Mhm.
But let's take a breath in, everyone. We're coming at this in a non-judgmental, totally exploring the space, and no one is at harm here. So if I had to say anything, I would say just the things that I just did. Build a game. What am I interested in right now? And I would say to take this quiz. Go take the Miss Jaya quiz. That's probably going to be my offering by the end of this episode is go take that quiz, everyone. Just for fun. Just for fun. And
Yeah, I'm
see
making a
what
note to take it
conversation it's.
myself.
Oh, yes. Oh, are we going to have to do a back-to-back episode and see what our blueprint types are?
Maybe. I'm not going to say I'm not open to it. So
Well, March is all about alignment. So
hey, there you go. Yeah, it's and it's interesting because I'm sitting here thinking where I am, like in my sort of personal journey and thinking about this. Yes, I'm an individual and I live alone, but I do have multiple, relationships. I am
Mhm.
polyamorous and I've got loving relationships. And so my interaction and sort of my connection and my thoughts and my exploration of sex and sexuality with me also differs based on which partner I'm with. And wondering, what level of exploration would happen with those individuals. And they're all different. They're all amazing. And I personally believe anybody that puts up with me for any significant amount of time is, qualifies for sainthood. But, what would that exploration look like with individual people, let alone with just myself? How would I go about, going down this list, energetic, sensual, sexual, kinky, shapeshifter?
Yeah.
What would that mean for me? And how would I sort of show up in those places and what would that look like? So,
Oh, I
yeah.
love what you just did. How do I show up in those places? Because then I think it's like trying on different roles, right? It's like
Yeah.
trying something on and saying, does this fit me? And it's
Right.
okay if it doesn't fit. And it's okay if it does fit.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so then we start with that's maybe the game for individuals. What about people who are like dating? What do you see as like the dating game? They're not quite settled down with someone, but they're like sowing their wild oats, quote unquote.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about dating is itself is just by the process and the act of dating people, whether you're dating a person or multiple people at a time, that itself is a form of exploration. The whole purpose of dating, getting to know somebody, right? I mean, and it's literally, every interaction, a little bit more conversation, a little bit more chat, seeing somebody in different scenarios, scenes, whatever, whether it be dinner, whether it be at a coffee shop, whether you go to an escape room to get whatever the date may be.
Yeah.
And of course there are so many creative ways of just kind of dating and whatnot. Can you imagine showing up on a fourth, fifth, or sixth date and saying, hey, take this Jaya quiz with me. And let's have that conversation and explore and see what comes out of that, right? I mean, think of it could, and again, that might be something for later on, like maybe a seventh or eighth. It depends, but your mileage may vary. And by all means, do what you want, when you feel comfortable, as long as everybody is on board, because consent is critical at every single stage and every single interaction. Yeah, I had to throw that in there. But yeah, why not? I mean, why not look at it and kind of do that exploration activity?
I loved it.
Together.
To what you just noted, or what I just noticed, excuse me, is what you just said. Look at how much easier it was for us to say, this is the game when you're dating, because we're trained. We are conditioned to know, well, when you're dating, this is what it's supposed to look like. But when it was just the individual, for a second, we were like, wait a minute, what do we do? Right? We're conditioned to know how to date, right?
Yeah.
Same thing will happen as we move up the list now, right? What if we're in a monogamous or a committed relationship with just one person? What does that look like? A lot of us have training on what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
But what I have discovered, what we'll see working with couples, is that a lot of the challenge comes in with, okay, so I know how to get the partner, but how do I keep the partner? How
Mm,
do I keep it spicy? How do I keep it erotic? How do I continue to have that fulfilling intimacy that lasts? And that's
right.
the game that I'm wondering. What do you think the game would be there?
That's interesting because you're right. We're trained. We're almost, taught either by osmosis, by just, immersion in the society we're in,
Oh yeah.
or the experience that we came up with, whether it be at home or, like you said, institutions, religious things like that. But yeah, you're right. It's all about leading up to getting the partner, but keeping them or keeping things going long term. I mean, we always applaud whenever we meet a couple that's been married for 50 years, and people usually ask, "What's your secret?" And every last one of them will have a different secret. Somehow and every last one of them be like, "Hey, we just, figured it out, or just stopped fighting over stupid things, or whatever." They always have something different. So, yeah, what would the game look like as far as, and let's just start with a monogamous couple, one person. Where do you go? Like again, consent to explore,
Mhm.
consent to play with the game, or do you have a conversation periodically every 5 years? Like, hey, we've been exploring in this direction
Mhm.
this way for this long. How about we keep playing the game, but play a different form of the game? Let's go rewrite the rules, right? And how would that look
Love that.
for people that are into various forms of sports ball and stuff? How would that look if these major leagues just decided every 5 years, we're going to completely rewrite the rules of this game, and see what happens next? Right? Guess what? Surprise, surprise. It's all going to look different right now. you know,
Love this offering that you just had to rewrite the rules, though. I could literally
right.
imagine saying to a couple that comes in and they say, or couples listening right now, he might be like, oh, it's a little staid. Like, I know that he likes it like this, she likes it like this, they like it like that, right? I
Mhm.
know this about my partner. And it's like, maybe we could do something a little different. Why don't you sit down and have a rewriting the rules session? You get your
Right.
favorite foods ready, you get your favorite music, your favorite spot, and you just be together intimately and agree to rewrite the rules, whatever that means. And you just say, we're going to explore, let's rewrite the rules. What are the rules we have had? And then second column, what do we want to shift?
Right. Yeah. What's different? And again, what do we want to shift? What do we want to change? That literally is a door opening to exploring, isn't it? That's
Oh,
exploration right there.
yeah.
That's exploration right there. What do we want to do different? That is the question you ask before you start exploring. And sometimes the answer is we don't know. Okay, well, we got to go find something. Let's go see if we can find something that we have a mutual interest in, or that
Yes.
maybe we don't, we just haven't thought of, or maybe we've thought of and something in our subconscious culture, whatever, told us we probably shouldn't think about this.
Don't think about that. Tiny voice in the
Yeah.
back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That little, voice on your shoulder. You
I'm the
remember you have the
naysayer and the critic. I'm the one who's supposed to keep you in the lines. I'm going to keep minimizing
exactly.
you for your safety.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. No, 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 no. This is good enough. You're not supposed to want more. It's like, yeah,
Oh,
no, but there's a part of me that desires more. Right. And it's
yes.
okay to have that part of me. And I'm going to agree with my partner to consent to finding out what more could be. What does more look like? So yeah, why not? I mean,
Yes,
why not
yes,
do
yes.
that and
So much
explore and play
yes.
that game?
So much yes, so much yes. And I love how at every point, all of my beautiful listeners, at every point of this process is consent, is consent, is consent, right? I know that somebody out there is going to end up listening and saying, oh, well, I'll just go explore and have, be intimate with somebody else and not tell my partner. That's how I'm going to explore. That would mean that your partner's not giving consent to you doing that unless you've had a conversation with them. Because there are lots of couples who have open relationships and it's consenting. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
let's move on to our final, last but not least category, our poly people.
Hello, poly folks. Solidarity.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does the game look like? Right? Creating the game
Mhm.
for I want to explore my sexuality and love safely in poly relationship.
Yeah, that's interesting because again, every relationship is different, right? And
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm,
polyamory, you've got more than one relationship.
mm-hmm.
To say nothing of the fact that, and this is going to be a little meta, but why not? Um, one of those
Do it.
multiple relationships, one of those multiple relationships you're in is the one that you're in with yourself. So, you have the right to consent to exploring sex and sexuality and love on your own, just with yourself. But then you take it to each individual partner and see what happens. And of course, each one is going to be a little bit different. So, yeah, you could literally be taking this quiz or doing this exploration or trying to rewrite rules. And by the way, write them down, because every relationship is going to have a different set of rules, because you're interacting with different people. That's the nature of polyamory. It's very, very unlikely that any of them will be exactly the same. And so what does it look like? Well, like anything else in polyamory, it's more work, because there's just more conversations to have, a whole lot more consent that needs to be engaged in and enthusiastically given.
Love that. And it's enthusiastically given.
Absolutely.
I want to repeat that. It should be enthusiastically given.
Yeah. Like I tell people whenever I'm doing my consent, educating and whatnot, if you're not sure, you don't have consent. It isn't, it's not complicated, but you do have to repeat it multiple times, because it's kind of like, well, what if you have to ask, what if you don't have consent? It's not that hard. It literally is. It's either enthusiastically there. It's either an absolute hell yes, let's go for it. Or by definition, it's a no. And if you're not sure, then you don't have a yes. That's just kind of the way that works. So yeah, it's got to be enthusiastically given. So, and again, you may have one partner who's like, no, I'm good where we are. I don't want to explore anymore. That, the consenting to not consenting is fine too. I don't want to do this. Okay, fine. Well, then you don't do that with that person. That's the reason why we have multiple ones, right? Because everybody is different. And we do have different relationships. We have the capacity to love people, who are different from everyone else. And it could, because again, if you've got multiple relationships and they're all exactly the same, my question would be why? But that's kind of the way I look at things as a polyamorous person. I mean, why would I have, 3 relationships with exactly the same type person at just different names? That doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, all of them are different.
There is this piece that's coming up for me, and I'll touch on this very quickly, because it's a small piece, but it's actually something that I see come up over and over again, both for people who are dating but not yet committed, and also for my poly people. So, and this is it. This is the dilemma. Now, in the book Polysecure, the author talks about this, and I'm gonna forgive me, y'all, because I think I'm gonna get the titles that she gives it wrong, but I will be expressing the basic idea of it. So I just want to clarify there. She talks about the difference in partnerships, like me having one particular partner, regardless of whether I have one or multiple partners, that relationship may be attachment based, like an attachment based need, or that relationship may be a want, that they're giving me something that I want, that is not necessarily attachment based. And so like my primary partner is probably going to be my attachment based partner. There's something there that I want. I come to that person to share my feelings with. I expect them to also share their successes with me and their grief with me, and that there's a attachment based relationship there, as opposed to the idea that a partner may just be there for once. So maybe I just have a partner who it's just for sex and fun. And that's how our consenting, respectful relationship is. We know that, I don't come to you to cry on your shoulder and you cry on my shoulder. Not that I would spurn you or be rude to you, but I'm not really the person for that, because I'm not meeting that need for you. What are your thoughts on this? Now, I know every human being out there, right? We're not a monolith. Everybody's going to have a different thought on this. But I have found when I work with my clients anywhere on the spectrum, that this has been a really freeing idea, that it's okay to say, I just want to have consenting adult sex with someone, and I don't need to plan to marry them, right? I don't need to plan to have children with them, so long as I'm being a responsible adult. And then I have partners who absolutely, I think that's where I want to head with them, quote unquote, right? And so what are your thoughts on playing with sex and love in this way?
Yeah. So my thoughts go to me first of all as a poly person, and the fact that I have multiple relationships, and some of my partners are married and they're married to other people. So I don't worry about, how important or what level, because I don't really do hierarchies. If I love them, I love them. For me,
this is another piece.
Yeah, for me, I don't necessarily quantify, love. But it is, I love this person. They're amazing. And, somebody asked me one time, don't you ever want someone that's just for you? And I'm like, I like the fact that I've got some amazing partners that have, extraordinary lives, and they have their own partners, and they've got their families and stuff like that. And as busy and amazing and wonderful as and full as their lives are, they still choose to be with me. And so for me, just garnering a little piece of somebody's life, no matter what else they have going on, means a lot. And so I work very, very hard at practicing gratitude with them, and just in enjoying the time that I do get to spend with them, enjoying just the exchange of love. And sometimes, because they're long distance, sometimes it literally is a Zoom call or just a Skype. Sometimes it's a message. Sometimes it's a quick text. Sometimes, I got a message from one of my partners today that's flying out to see me before my graduation ceremony in a couple of months. And that feels freaking amazing. And, because of the pandemic and because it's long distance, we haven't seen each other in person in a couple of years. Now, we've talked and communicated and had video chats and stuff, but, been, as she would say, in meat space with each other. It's been a while, so yeah, I can see different things and explorations. And hey, what is life going to look like for us now that we're back in each other's presence and it's been over 2 years, right? And that's going to be a form of exploration
in and of itself.
And
yeah.
Yeah, and I always laugh because I say, hey, it gives me the opportunity to fall in love with you again, because you're a different person now than you were 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh, that line. It gives me the opportunity to fall in love with you again. I love that line.
Yes, it happens to me all the time.
What a game-changing line that is, though. Anybody can use that, right? It gives me the opportunity to fall in love with you again. Can be your partner or even yourself. How do we fall in love again?
Right. Yeah.
That's a game.
And it's funny. It's one of the reasons why I laugh when I tell people that I'm non-monogamous and I have multiple partners, and they're like, "Are you afraid of commitment?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding? How many commitments I've made?"
I was about to say. I think we need to explore differentiating.
Yeah, it's totally the opposite. I love multiple people that all love me back, and also have their own partners and stuff, and it's pretty freaking amazing. But yeah, that's part of what exploration is. Sometimes just self-exploration. Can I explore this thing called love, as complicated as it is, as an individual, and find an opportunity to fall in love with myself again, let alone in the relationships I'm in? Can I fall in love with my partner again? And can we explore our relationship and and our sex and sexuality together in a loving way, and then find a way to fall in love with each other again?
Quick break for a sec. If Empowered Human is offering you something valuable about courage, healing, belonging, or love at your core, you may want to work with me. In particular, if you know of or identify as a high-achieving man, and I say this quite seriously because if you don't, I'm going to drive you up a friggin' wall. High achiever that has leveled up in every arena except your relationship with yourself or your relationships with others. Visit empoweredhuman.love for more on how you can level up in your relationships with one of our Empowered Human intensives. Intensives understand the value of your time. Of the 3 that I offer, Walk into Courage covers a month's worth of weekly sessions in just 2 hours. Dive into Courage is a 3-day intensive that can cover up to 6 months worth of sessions. And Ascend into Courage is a year-long program to give you the skills and the network you need to level up for lifelong emotional security. When it comes to leveling up in your relationships, I got you. Head to empoweredhuman.love for more. But for now, back to the episode.
And yeah, I've had the opportunity to do that a couple different times where I really do get to kind of, and I do. I mean, I'll tell a partner of mine, I kind of fall for you all over again. And just little things. I've got one partner of mine who is a mother of toddlers. And I told her, I don't have kids of my own, and I probably won't. I've kind of chosen not to, but I've told her I have watched her just be a mother and fallen for her all over again, because seeing that joy in her heart and seeing her be in her element in her space is beautiful. It's glorious, whether or not it includes me. Just watching it, sitting there in a video chat and listening to her interact with her children is freaking beautiful. And it's kind of hard to care about somebody and love them and then see them at one of their happiest moments in their life and not fall for them all over again. I mean, I don't know how you don't do that, but that's maybe that's the part of me that don't tell anyone is a hopeless romantic. So,
so there's one piece that you brought up too that I want to call out because this is triggered, right? Can we play with that?
Okay, go for it.
And this whole month has been about packaging of love. right? And what we even just caught, and I'm so glad you called it out without intentionally, right here it is when I said there's primary partners versus secondary, tertiary, right? That idea. I want to clarify for everyone out there something I know, but did not make clear until you said it, right? Not every polycule, right? Poly relationship believes in that hierarchy. And I think that's really important. Again, we're diversifying our idea of how love can be packaged, right?
Right.
And so, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. And the other key to that is there's not a right or wrong way. For some people, it's just easier. They've got their nesting partner, the partner they live with, they're married to, they have kids with, and whatnot. And some people do hierarchies.
We could do a whole episode on just this.
We absolutely could. And by all means, if you decide to, give me a call because I'm happy to talk about it. But,
we'll look at what's happening later on this year.
But for me personally, I can't do primaries because the moment you declare somebody a primary, everyone else becomes secondary. And I will not call somebody I love a secondary to anything ever, period. Because love is not quantifiable. I don't believe in the scarcity of this powerful thing called love. And like you said, the definitions of love or the various different ways that people refer to love, like in Greek and stuff like that. But I don't tell people I love them lightly, but when I do, I kind of mean it. And for me, I can't say, okay, yeah, I love you, but I have to love you a little bit less than this person because they're the primary. I can't do that. That's just something that I'm not able to tell somebody I love, that you're not as important as someone else. It just doesn't work for me.
Zach, we're coming to the end of our episode. I really hope we haven't gone over in time because then I'm going to have to edit some of this great stuff out. And I want to ask, right, the same thing I ask at the end of every episode. We set out to have hard conversations. We set out to go into sticky, uncomfortable territory and transform, a hard conversation into a teachable moment. Do you feel like we're taking away some teachable moments?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am, there's this idea of exploring, love and sex, or sex and love, however you want to, discuss them, in this idea of, I love how we came up with, and I'm just going to say we came up with it together, the idea of rewriting the rules of the game we're playing.
Gamify it, rewrite the rules sessions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Goal.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I like how that was something that, kind of came out of this, is rewriting the rules and consenting to rewriting the rules and to playing the game differently, or, hey, you know what, let's just go change the game entirely, and explore how we're going to change that. So yeah, no, I definitely think there's a whole lot of teachable stuff that came out of this time.
Like, I am so grateful for your time. How can people get a hold of you if they want to reach you after this?
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is @black_sexgeek. So it's just BLACK, then underscore, and then SEXGEEK. You have to use the underscore, or else you get Ruby Johnson, who is awesome. But yeah, she and I are two different. Yeah, it's not me. But no, Ruby's the mentor. I love her to death. I'm on Instagrams. I do the grams. It's just at the letter Z, the word Invictus, INVICTUZ. So yeah, it's @Z Invictus on Instagram, and that's probably the best way to get me. DM me on either one of those. And with that, my personal email address is zinvictus@gmail.com. And I'm going to go ahead and throw my website out there. You mentioned it earlier. It's Consent Warrior, all together, consentwarrior.com.
Yes, I'll put it in the show notes too, for sure.
Yeah, and I've got to update that because I've got a whole bunch of new activities and things that I've got going on that I got to put on there. But yeah, that's the website. So
fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Absolutely. My offering, of course, to my audience, you all heard it. We just checked in with it again. Gamify, rewrite the rules sessions, and fall in love with yourself and your chosen partners over and over again. That's how we're playing with sex and love. Lean in. Thank you for your time, Zach.
No problem.
It's me again, reminding you that this was a throwback episode. I hope that you were able to take something from it, even one little nugget of wisdom, and use that between this week and next week, right? The purpose of these episodes is to give you tools. It is up to you to decide whether you want to become skilled in them. You picking up what I'm putting down? So take a tool, take something, a perspective, a moment, something that works for you, and use it in your life to transform hard conversations into teachable moments, to transform the way that you play with scary moments, right? To transform your life, to help make you the most courageous, most healing-oriented, most belonging person, right? No matter where you go, that you belong to yourself everywhere you go, right? Courage, healing, belonging, whatever it is that you are taking from this episode, take it with you so that you can get out there and live your most vibrant life, you beautiful human being, okay? All right, I'm signing off for now, but I'm gonna see you soon, okay? I'm gonna see you real soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much for being willing to explore healing your humanity on Empowered Human. I hope you found at least one new way to transform your worldview from powered to empowered. If you took something from the show, please take a moment of your time and subscribe to Empowered Human. And if it really nourished you, leave us a review. Your feedback helps me understand what our community needs. Not to mention, it helps others discover the empowered human life. So keep this last bit in mind. All the visual goodies come with me on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina. Stay up to date there on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes goodness, and reels dropping knowledge. Thank you again for being part of the empowered human community. Until next time, stay curious.